This is Sarah Levitt with the Making Magnificence Project. And today my guest is Lisa Larter. I'm super excited to have her here because we've been talking about this for probably 6 months, Lisa?
If not longer.
If not longer.
It's been almost a year, I think.
Has it almost been a year? And Lisa Larter is the founder of the Lisa Larter Group and Go Daxxi, which helps clients to formulate marketing strategies and so to support their business goals and objectives. And you provide both consulting and advisory services, yes?
Consulting and advisory service, strategy, consulting, advisory, and I have a team that does implementation for some of our clients.
Yes. And so just kind of at the top here, I want to make sure. So if folks become keenly interested in not only your story, but the work that you're helping clients with, what is the best way to kind of find out more about you?
They can go to lisalarter.com. That's probably the best place to start. And then I would just I can play traffic cop.
Okay, fantastic. So let's start there. Kind of give us a sketch of what the Lisa Larter Group and Go Daxxi is about, and really what kind of the primary focus of your work is.
It's a great question. The work started over a decade ago, really trying to help people understand this new world of social media and how to use content marketing and video marketing and social media marketing in their business. And my corporate background combined with my technology skills, because I came from the wireless industry, and my ability to see how to use marketing to translate sales kind of evolved into more than just teaching people how to use buttons on Facebook. One of my first consulting clients was a marketing director from a shopping center. And one day she said to me, "I wish you could just do this for me." And I said, "Well, I can." And so then I started actually doing the implementation for her myself, because it was very early on in my business. And then the next thing I knew, I had another client who wanted that, and another client who wanted that, and another client. And so the business has just grown and evolved since then. So my role is really primarily strategy and advisement. And when the client is the right fit, our team does implementation. And implementation of the work is typically website design and development, or either a new website or renovating an existing website. It's helping with the content marketing. It's helping with the online, all aspects of digital marketing, really.
Kind of the whole suite of services, it sounds like.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things that, one of the strengths that I bring to the table is I see people's potential. Mm-hmm. And I often will go to somebody's website. Well, I actually think I said this to you a few years ago. And I'll look at their website and I'll say, there's a disconnect. Mm-hmm. The way you show up online is
exactly what you said to me.
compared to the way you are in person. Yeah. And so my retail background says to me, your website is your storefront. You go to the mall to shop. You walk through the mall and you look at every single storefront, and you do not go in every single store. And you don't go in every single store because as you walk by the storefronts, you go, that's not for me. That's not for me. That's not for me. That's not, oh, that's for me. Mm-hmm. Well, if the storefront is poorly merchandised, no one goes in. If your digital footprint is poorly merchandised, no one's reaching out. And so I help people align their true gifts and talents to the way they show up and represent themselves online. Mm-hmm. And that ultimately translates into more business opportunities for them.
Mm-hmm. So you think that's your kind of your gift or sweet spots, so to speak, if you had to?
I think it's one of them.
Mm-hmm. I would think so too.
Yeah, I think it's one of them. I think, I think that my ability to develop strategy over a cross function of different types of businesses is a bit of a superpower, in the sense that it doesn't matter what your business is. Like, I can very quickly understand the business and understand the model and understand the marketing to help you reach your goals. And I think that is is a rare thing. And I think it really is my corporate background, working in the wireless industry and just owning my own bricks and mortar business and understanding retail. I've just had so many different experiences that have come together to allow me to be able to do that.
And you have built, correct me if I don't have this right, Lisa, but you have built 2 businesses in excess of 7 figures, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And Go Daxxi will be the third.
Whoop. Fabulous.
Yeah.
So I'd like to kind of dial back, because the Making Magnificence project is really about someone's story and their trajectory and what that looked like from the inside kind of along the way. And from the outside looking in right now, we're hearing about this woman with superpowers. Really, right? Like a kind of amazing superpowers. I mean, brick and mortar, now you're, a founder, and you're helping other founders, et cetera, et cetera. But that trajectory, if someone were to have looked at your growing up years, would it be fair to say that that trajectory was not an obvious path?
Well, my parents split up when I was 4. My kindergarten teacher told my mom that if you put me in the world by myself at the age of 5, that I would survive. So there was a little something there, but
yeah.
I dropped out of high school before I finished my last year. So I actually do not have a high school diploma, and I don't have any post-secondary education. But if you look behind me, you read voraciously. So I do not consider myself to be uneducated, but I consider myself uneducated through the traditional pathway. In my early 20s, while working in retail, I think I was probably like most young people. I had a really bad relationship with my credit card company, and I used my credit card for all the wrong things, and, got myself into debt a number of times, and, really needed to sort that out in my 20s. And so back then, if you knew me before 25, you might not have thought that I was as capable as I am today. So I wouldn't say that I don't have a family member who is a business owner. I didn't have an entrepreneurial role model. I didn't have family members that worked in, the corporate world. And so I'm a bit of an anomaly from my family's side in terms of what I have done.
And it's my understanding, I'd like to kind of dial back a little bit, because it's my understanding in our yours and mine conversations that there were some at least 2 kind of significant events that really shaped your decision to want to be autonomous and an entrepreneur, et cetera. So either or both, whatever you'd like to share on that.
Are you talking about the one about me being sick as a kid? So that didn't really, I don't know that shaped my decision to be an entrepreneur, but so my parents split up when I was 4. And after about the age of grade 4, I started to have a lot of health issues. And the summer between grade 5 and grade 6, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And that summer, my mom worked in a lumber yard. She worked for a guy named Otto. And that summer, I hemorrhaged from my bowel. And I hemorrhaged really, really, really badly from my bowel, to the point that I needed to be put in ICU for a week and transfused multiple times. And the only place I could find a pulse was in my ankle when this happened. But the doctor called my mom while she was at work that day and said she needs to go to Peterborough, because I grew up in Halliburton, Ontario, this little tiny town. She needs to go to the hospital in the city. Do you want us to send her by ambulance, or do you want to take her? So my mom didn't want me to have to go by ambulance. Of course, she's a single mom. She's terrified something's going to happen to her daughter. She wants to take me. So she goes to her boss, Otto, and basically says, my daughter is really sick. I need to take her to the hospital. And he looked at her and he said, you know, you've got your problems and I've got mine, and I need you here right now. And he wouldn't let her leave. And
Lisa, how old are you again at this point?
somewhere between grade 5 and grade 6, I was probably 11 or 12.
You're a kid. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so I'm in intensive care in the hospital in Peterborough. And before they had diagnosed me with Crohn's disease, my doctor, my pediatrician, told my mom that this was likely caused by stress. So imagine you are in your 30s, early 30s. You're a single mom before it was commonplace to be a single mom.
Mm-hmm.
You're working in a factory because it's the best paying job you can get to take care of your kid. You are deathly afraid that you're going to lose your child because it's not, it's new territory for single moms. Your boss won't let you leave to take care of your kid. And now your child's doctor is telling you that this was likely caused by stress. Like, I think my mom just about had a breakdown in the hospital because she thought it was her fault. And it wasn't until later when they finally diagnosed what it was that I think she was able to, realize that she hadn't caused this. But that whole situation, I remember how upset my mom was. And I remember thinking that no one will ever tell me that I can't leave my job to take care of somebody when I need to take care of them if that person matters to me. There is no way that anybody will ever do that to me. And so I think that part of the reason that I care so much about the work that I do with business owners is there's a lot of people out there that run businesses that they treat themselves worse than Otto treated my mom.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And they're beholden to their business and they don't have the financial wherewithal to make the decisions that they want to make. So they don't understand how to create that autonomy for themselves in their business. And for me, the most important work that I can do is help them to have the freedom to be able to choose to walk away from their business when something is really important, like a sick child, and not have to worry that their business is going to implode.
Yeah, there are several pieces here, but I'm just thinking it's interesting the distinction you make that. So you saw your mom, to your point, beholden to a situation and a boss that was kind of making decisions for her. And you said, that's not going to fly with me. But then the distinction you're making is, and then some people go out on their own. We become entrepreneurs and we're just as beholden. Mm-hmm. In some ways. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's there are kind of two pieces there. In your kind of business trajectory, Lisa, were there times when you really had to kind of dig deep and circle back to that emotional touchstone? In other words, you may have been facing an external obstacle that was particularly challenging. And you're like, well, I'm not going to go work for somebody else. Like, was there a time when you had to kind of circle back to that moment of declaration with yourself? Or maybe my question is, how did you carry that I am never going to?
I think I just did. I think it's just a conviction inside of me, because mm-hmm. even in my work, even when I was, a retail store manager, an area manager, a regional manager, like at every role that I've had, I've always been given autonomy because I was so responsible mm-hmm. in the work that I did. And so I guess there's a little bit of, I don't know, maybe an edge to me or a knowingness that I'm going to be okay. Like, it's okay. So you're going to fire me? Great. I'll get another job. Like, even when I started the business, when I left my corporate job in 2006 to open the retail bricks and mortar business, I remember sitting and thinking about worst case scenario. What would I do if everything went wrong? What would I do if this was a really bad investment? What would I do if we had to sell our house because of this? Like, I really imagined worst case scenario. And I thought, well, I've lived in an apartment before, I could do it again. And I've had a job before, I could do it again. And so it was like, okay, I'm strong. I can do hard things. Like, I can figure it out. And so I think there's just that that 5-year-old who would be okay in the world is
I'm
still
hearing that.
in the show, right?
I'm hearing that. That's what I'm thinking, like your self-knowledge of I'll figure it out, I'll be okay, is what your kindergarten, I was just thinking that's what your kindergarten teacher, like you could send this girl out into the world and she'll be fine.
Right. And my mom, I'm the opposite of my mom, because my mom's upbringing was very different. My mom, I'm not a parent, so I've had very different life circumstances, but I knew that I didn't want my mom's life. And my mom didn't want me to have it either. Like my mom wanted me to get out of this town and make something of yourself. Don't ever have to work for somebody like this, do better. Like she wanted, more for me. And she kind of instilled in me that I could do anything. And so, but yet my mom, although she's never been diagnosed, and I'm sorry, Mom, if you're listening to this interview, I think my mom's agoraphobic. I think she's afraid to like leave her house at times and go do things. Like here we have this beautiful home in Florida. We've owned it since 2010. My mom's never been to visit because she won't fly. So, I am so courageous in that, okay, let's go do this, let's go do this. And yet my mom is the opposite. So I don't really know. Like I think it was nature. I don't think it was nurture.
Yeah, so it's so interesting too, like it's almost the reverse, that parenting adage about do what I say, not what I do. And in fact, right, like that's exactly what happened with you, right? Like you did what your mom said, which was go out into the world, go be a force of nature kind of thing.
Right. And every time I did something, my mom was like, oh my God, child. So when I told her I was quitting my job to open the bricks and mortar business, it was like, oh my God, child, they treat you so well. They pay you so well. Are you sure you're making the right decision? And then when I sold that business, oh my God, child, are you sure you're doing the right thing? And then I finally got to a point where one day my mom said, so I guess you made the right decisions, huh? But every time I'm going to go do this, or I'm going to do, my mom's always like, oh, are you sure you're doing the right thing?
So actually, let's talk about that, Lisa, those kind of inflection points when you are kind of on the precipice of, it sounds like letting go of something to do something bigger and what you might think of as better. So part of your internal emotional processes and mechanisms are, well, the example you gave a little, you kind of take it down to brass tacks. Well, if I need to, I'll live in an apartment. What else is going on? And the reason I'm circling on this is because the unknown and the uncertain, that's what kind of scares us as human beings. And so I'm always curious about, wow, what's coming up and how are you navigating that to take the next step?
Right. I think there's two things. One, a lot of times, most of the time, I don't really care what people think. Meaning, I don't really care what other people think of the decisions and choices that I make, because they don't have to live with them. I do. And so I'm not someone who has the disease to please. I'm not doing things to please other people. Now, having said that, I am also a very responsible person. So if, for example, I was going to make changes in my existing business, I'm the type of person that would give my clients lots of notice that change was coming. I wouldn't just, pull a carpet out from underneath people. Like that's not who I am. But I think the second thing where the confidence comes from is I know how to make money. So fear is often rooted in, what if I don't have enough money to pay my bills? What if I don't have enough money to pay my mortgage? What if and so for me, I've been figuring out how to make money since I was 12 years old. And, I started selling things at the flea market. I've been making money, finding ways to fund what I want since I was 12. And so money doesn't scare me because you can just make more. And so I think that I have this, although I'm a numbers nut, like I do like to look at the numbers in my business, I'm not afraid of the numbers. I'm not intimidated by the numbers because I know how to move the numbers. And so I think that where a lot of people get tripped up is they have a financial scarcity mindset. They're afraid that they're going to be monetarily penalized if they make a different choice. I'm not afraid of that. You know,
Are you
I'm
not
not
afraid?
Elon Musk, but I'm not,
Yeah.
you know, but I'm just not afraid. Like it's not a consideration.
So are you not afraid of the financial loss, or are you unafraid of, well, let me start there. So is it financial loss that you're unafraid of? Or are you unafraid of making a poor decision?
I'm not, money isn't the root of my fear. So some people don't make decisions because they're afraid of the financial impact. They're afraid if I quit my job here, I might not make as much money there. If I close this business, I might not make as much money here. And so that money is what scares them. It doesn't scare me. I have lost money and I've made more. So, but I'm also not careless or reckless.
Right. Yeah.
So I've got, you know, when I quit my, you know, 6-figure job and opened my bricks and mortar business, I had stock options. And I made sure that I cashed out enough stock options to put money in the bank so that I had a cushion to live off of while I was building this business. So I'm not reckless when it comes to money, but I don't let money drive my fear, if that makes sense.
I'm hearing a kind of a practicality too. So in two ways. One is, well, if I have to, I'll downsize, whatever that means at whatever stage, right? I'll live in an apartment, whatever that might be. And the other is a practicality of kind of the safety net underneath you. As you're you're talking about stock options and that kind of thing, you're looking around for kind of a practical way not to free fall. Would that be accurate?
I guess. I mean, in the
It may
first
not be. You tell
situation,
me. Yeah.
yeah, in the first scenario, was going out to be an entrepreneur for the very first time. I'm quitting a really good job to go do this. And so walking away from that seniority, walking away from that income, walking away from those annual distributions of stock options and all that stuff, I needed to really sit with, am I doing the right thing? And my way of working through the question, am I doing the right thing, is always, what's the worst case scenario? And if I can figure out, okay, well, I don't think worst case scenario is going to happen, but if worst case scenario does happen, do I have a plan? What will I do? And when I know that I know what I will do, then all of a sudden I'm not afraid of worst case scenario. You know, I was in my 20s and I remember sitting in my car outside of an apartment that I lived in that had cockroaches at the time. So way before, you know, I had money or any money. And I remember sitting in my car and making the decision, and I wasn't going to worry about things that I couldn't control. I was only going to worry about things that I could control. And then I wasn't going to worry about them. I was going to figure out what to do about them. And so I think that's the way that I kind of think things through. So if I'm like, okay, am I making the right decision here? What is the worst case scenario? Now I know what the worst case scenario is. All right, I can handle that. What will I do? And then once I've looked at it, I don't have to worry about it because now I know. So it's not attached to me, if that makes sense. Whereas
and you're not attached to it. You're not, yeah, it's not running.
A lot of people never make the move because they imagine the worst possible thing that will likely never happen. And so I just would rather look at what's the worst case scenario and figure it out. Like, I'll give you another example. When COVID hit, and you know, businesses are closing and this is happening and that's happening and everybody's wondering what's going to happen with their business. I was like, well, I don't know what's going to happen with my business. Like, for all I know, half my clients could disappear right now because they may all say we can't afford to continue to do this work during COVID. And so what I did is I got really clear on my burn rate. I looked at how much money do I have in my bank, how much money is it costing me to run the business? How many weeks worth of runway do we have here? And then I went to my team and I said, I need you guys to all know we're okay. We're okay. We have enough money in the bank that if business stopped tomorrow, if 100% of our business stopped tomorrow, we would be okay for X number of months. And that's not going to happen. But if it does, I promise you, I will give you lots of notice that you need to go, find something else. And of course, we maintained our sales through the whole thing. But I had to look at it because I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to get clear on, what's worst case scenario. All right. Worst case scenario is we lose all our clients and I still have this much money that I need to spend. How long can I survive? And what do I do to protect myself in the process so that I get out soon enough that I don't burn all that money unknowing, not knowing, realizing what's going on.
And you were super clear with your team as well,
Yes.
so that there was
I didn't want them
no
to
kind
worry.
of, right, there was no worry. I always talk to clients about this, that but by nature, as human beings, we like to know the end of the story. And if you are not able to communicate that as a leader, people will start filling in the story on their own, which is almost never a good thing. Yeah. So I'm hearing that piece too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So has there been a particularly difficult decision in your business life that you've kind of really wrestled with? So it sounds like a number of these were, you looked at how to mitigate the risk, you looked at what the risks were, you looked at lots of, potential upside and opportunity. Was there ever a particularly difficult decision where you wrestled with yourself and in retrospect might have made a different decision?
The most difficult decisions that I've ever had to make in my business have always been around people. They've been around, either difficult clients or they've been around, employees that were the wrong fit, and caring about the people, but knowing that those people were not the right fit for the organization. And finding the courage to have those conversations and do what needs to be done. Because sometimes an employee is not the right fit, but it's not because they're not willing and don't want to do a good job. It's they don't have the capacity to do the job. And as a business person, sometimes you have to make really tough decisions about getting people off the bus that are not the right people on your bus. And so those have been some of the hardest things that I have done. In retrospect, I would say that some of those decisions should have been made sooner. That, I probably tried too hard to make it right for them. And it probably would have been easier for them if I just let them go sooner. And so, that's probably, one of the hardest things that I've dealt with in the business. Because in a small business, you get close to people, you build relationships, you learn about them, their family, you care about them, you don't want them. When somebody is being exited out of the team, that's their livelihood. I understand how stressful and frightening that can be for someone.
I once heard a leader describe this as the difference between being kind and being nice. That helping someone kind of develop further and giving them clear feedback or saying, look, it looks like this may not be, it is really a kindness rather than trying to just kind of be nice, so to speak.
Right. Exactly.
So you've talked quite a bit about kind of your thinking around business decisions and risk. When you are working with clients and entrepreneurs, what are the things that you are kind of counseling and coaching them on in terms of risk mitigation? Because we've heard, there's so many factors right now, and we've just come through a pandemic. So what are the things that you kind of, in addition, obviously, I'm guessing you're going to be focused on kind of growth, et cetera. That's not risk, but what are you telling them to kind of like be on the lookout for?
it's always about their numbers. It's always about
Mhm.
understanding the financial side of their business, because so many small business owners don't know what they owe in taxes until the end of the year. They don't have enough cash flow in the bank account to, fund any type of crises. And so I'm always trying to help them kind of look at the financial health of their business, to ensure that they're in a safe situation. And I think a lot of that guidance and input really comes when people are looking to hire or expand. They want reassurance that investing in the next person is the right thing to do. And so helping them to be able to make those decisions is probably the biggest part of risk that I deal with. I mean, a lot of my clients are consultants, small business owners. And so they're not dealing with risk the way a much bigger corporation would.
Mhm.
In many
Mhm.
cases, they're solopreneurs or they're very small
Mhm.
firms. So I don't think that I do a lot in terms of risk. I think sometimes I might help them to identify red flags that could turn into potential problems down the road, whether it's with pricing or the way their proposals or contracts are written, or the way they do their marketing. Like I have a client who always jokes. She says that I'm her brand police, that if she does something on social media that if it could remotely get her in trouble, she's going to get a screenshot from me and telling her to take it down, right? So that kind of things is, I
Yep.
want to protect them.
Yep. Yep. Um, and so your kindergarten teacher saw something in you that um, proved to be the case. When you say that one of your superpowers, I'm kind of circling back to the beginning of our conversation here. When you say that one of your superpowers is kind of seeing someone's potential, that's
Mhm.
really in some ways what that kindergarten teacher, saw for you. What is it that you think you are seeing? And are there themes or kind of threads that run among, I presume, very different people?
There's definitely themes.
Hmm.
People don't realize how good they are. I mean,
Mm.
our inner critic is always louder than our inner champion. And I think that, people second guess themselves. They don't realize that they don't realize they can charge more. They don't realize that what they know is valuable to other people. They don't realize that they don't see the way that they could position themselves differently to have a bigger impact. And so it's really all of those things. I mean, a lot of the people that I work with, who are thought leaders, because they're experts at their expertise, they actually think that their expertise is no big deal. It's like they're the fish in water, right? Well, what
Yes.
do you
Yeah.
mean? Well, everybody knows that. No, they don't. You
Yes.
know that. And
Yes.
so I think it's sometimes helping people to really see what is possible. And even, I threatened to fire somebody one time because she sent me a number. I mean, well, I'm going to charge them this. And I'm like, you charge them that and we're done. You need to charge this. And but it was like a shock to her, and she did what I told her to do and she got paid with no pushback. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, somebody once described it for me as, you get into the weeds and you pull them apart and you say, go here. It's like you have this ability to just see clearly exactly what my next step should be. And when you point it out to me, it's so obvious, but I couldn't see it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's a little bit of what it is. I think we all need a champion more than we need a critic. I can criticize things, but I want to help people see what's possible for them, because most people are not they're not seeing the value that they bring to the table, and they're not positioning and packaging it in a way that could really benefit them in their business. And it's almost like they need their self-confidence topped up a bit. They need somebody to pour into them so they can see what they're
Mm-hmm.
capable of. There's a story that I like to tell. When I worked for TELUS, the wireless company, years ago, I had to give somebody a final written warning. And I had this new boss, her name is Jackie Fu. And she wanted to sit in with me when I gave this manager a final written warning. And so she had the written warning beside her, and I had the written warning, and I'm having this conversation with this woman. And she is like, got a red pen, and she's taking notes, taking notes, taking notes. And like with every note, my self-confidence was going like this. Oh my God, another mistake, another mistake. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. This is going to be awful. Finished the conversation, manager left. And she turned around, she looked at me, she goes, that was amazing. And then she proceeded to read everything that I had done right. And that was a real defining moment for me, because we don't often see what we're doing that is right. And when somebody else takes the time to see and notice what we're doing right, and they shine a light and they point at it and tell us you did good here, it helps us because we don't see ourselves. David Baker wrote the book, The Business of Expertise. And the metaphor that he uses in the book that I love is you can't read the ingredients on the outside of a jar when you're in the jar. So
that's a great metaphor.
My clients are in the jar. I can see the ingredients. I can tell them what it is that makes them so special.
And it also sounds like kind of give them a map, right? That's the strategy piece. So it's seeing what's possible and then giving somebody the kind of the map.
Exactly.
The map to get there. So you mentioned an inner critic versus an inner champion. I know in kind of my work, the way that shows up with clients is, what we hear of most often is imposter syndrome, but that internal voice that says something along the lines of, did someone make a mistake in choosing me? Who do you think you are attempting this? That whole, people are going to be relying on me and I don't actually know what I'm doing, that kind of thing. I've had more than one client say that they didn't want to change their LinkedIn profile when they got promoted because inside it, what if I fail, right? So that, and these are very accomplished people. How does your kind of inner critic show up, and how do you relate to it and manage it so it doesn't get in the way?
Sometimes when I get a new client that is a bigger client, like I have a client right now that is a Morgan Stanley owned company. And when they came to me for strategy, I felt my inner critic go, oh my gosh, can you do this?
Right.
Like, who are you to do
right.
this work?
Right. There it is.
And,
who are you?
Yeah. Who are you to do this work? And then I was like, no, you know what? I've done work like this before. Who am I not to do this work? Nice. And of course I did the strategy and the conversation went great. And I'm like, I've noticed that whenever I feel that apprehension, the moment I get into it, it disappears because I'm in it. But there's another spot where it's come up for me a couple of times now, which is in doing work with couples. So I typically, not all, but a lot of my clients are women. And I've had a few situations now where women have come to me and said, I'd really like to do this work with you and my husband, because my husband works with me in the business. And a few weeks ago, a couple flew in, and I've done work with her for a couple of years now. And I've met her husband, but I've never, really done any business with him. And they own multiple businesses. And she said, we really need a strategy. Like, we need somebody to help us look at our kind of all of our businesses and to really figure out what's our next move. And so they came in to do a day of strategy with me. And I felt that again, like, oh, is he going to think that, this blonde high school dropout knows enough about business? I have an MBA. And so we spent the day together. We did really, really great work. And then that night at dinner, I said to him, I said, so how is today for you anyways? Because you've never done this work for me before. Like, was it what you expected, or like how was it? And he looked at me and he said, you know what, Lisa, you are exceptional at what you do. I didn't know what I was in for, and it was so much more than I ever could have expected. Nice. And so I think that, we all have those moments where we wonder, who am I? Can I do this? And I think that one of the things that is helpful for me is my relationship with money. Because if that couple came in and I felt like I hadn't been of service, if I felt like I was struggling, if I felt like I wasn't the right person, I would have given them their money back. And so I think that that helps me because I'm not desperate for the revenue.
Yep.
That I know that I'm going to earn what I'm being paid. I'm going to provide the value, or I'm not going to take the money.
It sounds like too, in several examples, Lisa, that the inner critic comes up. You hear it, and then you don't give it a whole lot of due. In other words, you kind of just get into it, as you say, because once you're in it, then there's some kind of momentum, probably emotional momentum that's building. Do you see clients whose inner critics are so strong that they're not able to kind of get into it, like take the step to action?
Oh,
and
for
how,
sure.
Yeah. And how are you kind of coaching or talking to them about that?
It's interesting. I'm noticing a trend in the last year and a bit with clients that are like that. And the way that we have been doing the work is we're doing it together. So when there are things that they're kind of bumping up against and they're not able to do it, and they know it's really important, they really want to get it done, they're actually scheduling working sessions with me so that we can do it together. So they're not left on their own to do it. So these are people that are very self-aware. They know when they're at a point where they can't rely on themselves to do it. And so they're going to put skin in the game, money on the table to say, I need to get this done. Will you do it with me? And I'll be the guide. I'll sit there and I'll help them and we'll get it done. And I've done a number of sessions like that over the last year and a bit. And it's really good because they feel a sense of accomplishment because they're able to actually finalize or get done whatever it is that they wanted to get done in their business. And, in some cases it's, I worked with somebody who's got this really big idea for a course that they want to teach in a very specific niche. And I just spent a day with them mapping out all the details, all the nitty-gritty details of what they're going to need to create. And they're like super happy because now they have a plan that's very, very specific. I've worked with somebody on, doing the same thing in terms of creating a book outline so that they know exactly what they need to do. There's various examples that I could use, but I think it's, just helping somebody do the work with them.
Yeah, they've got not only kind of backup and encouragement there, but again, it goes back to the strategy and the mapping. They've got a partner there.
Right. They have a partner, but those things are all examples of where their own self-doubt gets in the way of them starting. And so it's like a flywheel, right? So this person that I helped with the course, we built out all the modules, like all the bullet points and the details and who it's for and what it is and all this stuff. She's still got to go do the work.
Right.
But the momentum that you get from getting it off the ground and getting the plan made makes it easy to now go do the work because you're not sitting in analysis paralysis. And analysis paralysis comes from that doubt of, is this a good idea? Who am I to do this? Am I really good enough? Will anybody buy this? All that stuff.
Yeah. I'm thinking back to your kind of inner critic as with the new client that you were talking about, the couple, and you're like, the inner critic, the inner voice was saying, is this person going to think, who is this blonde high school dropout? And you've mentioned being or dropping out of high school several times. And I'd love to hear how that has, because it sounds like it's a significant event. In other words, it's not something you shrink from, but in your kind of trajectory, it's something that you reference back to. And so what does that mean kind of in the arc of your story? Like, how do you think about that for yourself?
I think of the reason I share it so openly is because I just want people to know that there are many paths to get what you
Hmm.
want in life. And
Yes.
I,
Yes.
I think that if you want to go to college or university, that's a great path. If you want to step into your family business, that's a great path. Like, you don't have to follow the traditional way. And so people always seem shocked when they hear that I'm a high school dropout, because we
Mm-hmm.
have this perception, high school dropouts, yeah, they sweep them under the sidewalk, and like they're not capable of anything. They didn't finish, right? Well, those people who finish better in careers. Well, you know what? Not always. And
Right.
so I just like to talk about it because I know that it inspires other people that might be telling themselves the story that they could never do that, because
Yep.
that maybe they can.
Yes.
And so that's why I talk about it. I mean, it's not a really big defining thing. I mean, I was a good student. I was an honor student
Hmm.
for, most of my life. But I moved in with my dad my last year of high school. And my dad and I were like this. And I met a guy, I had a new boyfriend, and he was way more interesting than studying for exams. And my dad made a comment to me at the dinner table one night that I didn't have what it took to go to university. And so I decided to hold him to that. And I
Right.
went up to him one night, and in my bratty little self, who knew she could be okay in the world,
Yeah,
said,
totally. I was thinking that.
I've been thinking about what you said, and I think you're right. I don't think what I have to have what it takes to go to university. So I'm going to quit school. And my dad didn't try to stop me.
Mm-hmm.
If my
Mm-hmm.
dad had said, there's no way you are going to school, like if he had actually pushed back even a little bit, I went back downstairs in my bedroom and kept studying for calculus and gone to school the next day, but he
Right.
didn't.
Yep.
And so then I was like, well, I guess I got to figure this out. So I went to the mall and I got a job. And I planned on going back to school, and I didn't, because I just kept getting promoted and promoted and promoted. And
Yeah.
I was 21 and I was making more money than my mom had ever made before in her life.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, maybe I don't need to go back to school. Maybe I have a career here. Maybe there are other ways of learning.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that thing that you think is the reason that you can't do something should be
Mm-hmm.
questioned and challenged.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. I love how you're kind of saying, I not only don't hide it, but I kind of declare it in different ways, because in a way you're modeling,
Mhm.
for someone else, it's, I can't do it, not because I'm a high school drop. It's whatever we all do to fill in the blank. I can't do it
Right.
because I can't, because whatever that might be. And so you're taking something and kind of making it very visible, and
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And presenting a very different trajectory and story out
Mhm.
of it.
Yeah. And you know what I'm missing? I'm missing an arts credit.
Wow, Lisa.
An
Wow.
arts credit.
Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
But I don't have a paper. I don't have a diploma.
Right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did not graduate.
Right. Yeah.
So it's, I think it's important that you share those things, and that you
Hmm.
let people know that there are different ways of getting there. I mean, education is a business. It really is. And there's so many different ways that you can educate yourself online today that, the traditional path isn't necessarily the path people have to take.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So a couple more things as we wind down here. One of them is, you, in our conversations and prior conversations, you've talked about kind of your legacy work.
Mhm.
You've used that word, in that phrase, legacy and legacy work, when it comes to what you're doing in the world, and really what your intention is with clients. So would you share what legacy work means for Lisa Larter in the world?
I I just want to know that I made a difference. I want to know that I put stuff out there that helped people.
Mhm.
And so, last year I started the strategy lab. And I started the strategy lab because I wanted a place where I could teach and store my body of work, my ideas around business and marketing and leadership. And I wanted to build something that I just keep adding into on a monthly basis, so that over time, it becomes this bank of assets where I could say to somebody who's a new entrepreneur, oh, go watch this video on rock, pebble, sand. They're not going to know what that means, but man, are they going to learn. No, go watch this video on how to increase profit. No, go watch this video on how to use hashtags. Like, I want to create a place where I can point people to resources where they can learn without me, because I only have so many hours in a day, just like you. And so for me, it's creating this environment that allows people to have access to the learning without having to invest in high level coaching or advisement with me. And I also, as an entrepreneur, I wanted a place where I could just keep all my stuff, because I felt like the first decade of my business, I created stuff, but it's all over the place. And so I wanted a place where I could organize it and keep it together so that it creates mass and creates more impact and more value.
It sounds yeah, go ahead.
But I think, beyond like the creation of that type of work, for me, it's like, I have a client who started to work with me a number of years ago. And she had a business that she wanted to build and sell. And her biggest goal was she wanted to sell her business and pay off her mortgage. And I helped her do that. And when she sits in front of me and cries and says, "You changed my family's life,"
mm-hmm.
that to me is legacy. When her kids want to be my friend on Facebook because they look up to me because they know what I've done to help their mom, which has helped them, like that to me is really powerful.
Yeah, no, there it is. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, so it sounds like, I was going to say, it sounds like it's kind of twofold. It's kind of this repository, so legacy, repository of your thinking and your creations, etc. But it's also to the beautiful story you were just sharing, kind of the ripple out effect of the work you're doing with clients and how that then changes their lives. Yeah. Yep.
I have another client whose daughter came to me and asked me to help her with her finances. And so I helped her create a spreadsheet and organize everything and told her what she needed to do. And she's been doing it. And she sent me an email last week and she's like, "My credit score has gone up by X number of points since I started listening to you," right? Those are cool. You're making a difference in somebody's life, right?
Yeah.
That to me is great.
Yep. So my last question is the question that I ask all interviewees for the Making Magnificence project, which is, what does magnificence mean to you in your own life?
What does magnificence mean to me in my own life? That's a really great question. I don't know. Like, I think magnificence means to me, I guess, having the courage to live bravely and to live, a good life and spend time with the people that matter to you. And to, I always say we work to live, we don't live to work. And so I want to create a really big impact for other people through my work. And I want that impact that comes back to me to flow over into the life that I have with my husband, so that we have a really great life together. And, our dogs and our new puppy, which I don't know where she is, but, all of that to me is really, creating magnificence. It's like the full circle.
That's a delicious place to conclude our interview. My guest today, for the Making Magnificence project has been Lisa Larter, founder of the Lisa Larter Group and Go Daxxi. Lisa, this was a long time coming, but thank you for this conversation.
Thank you.